Part 67. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 661. Chapter 661 details determine success or failure. Jiaran thought about it for a while, but did not refuse, and said, "Our family loves my sister so much, whether it is her father, the village bodyguard, or even the marquis, they all tell her a lot of stories about the rivers and lakes. So, when she knew we were going out this time, my sister compiled a pamphlet like this. It didn't actually have a few sentences, but it was just some interesting stories to remind us to be wary of people's dislike. You can watch it if you want, but please don't spread it outside. Although my sister is still young, she is still a woman, and her reputation is important." "Okay, Brother Li, don't worry, we will definitely not spread the news," Luzong and Jiasu quickly assured them. When Brother Cat saw that his elder brother had agreed, he couldn't help showing off for a long time, so he took out the booklet he carried with him and started talking to the two of them. Jiaran walked around the house a few times with his hands behind his back, still feeling that today's matter might not end so easily. He wanted to take his brothers back to the fleet, but he was afraid of bringing disaster back. "What's more, I finally took my brothers to live independently for once, and I didn't want to end it so frightened. But if you don't tell your uncle, if you are really touched by these evil people, you will suffer a big loss and there will be no regrets." After hesitation, he asked Brother Li a few questions. Brother Li is usually polite and gentle, and his smile is harmless to humans and animals. However, at this critical moment today, he is very reliable. It can be seen that there is also a bit of ruthlessness in his temperament. At this moment, Jiaran subconsciously no longer regarded him as a child. Sure enough, after hearing his elder brother's inquiry, Brother Li turned his attention to Luzong and whispered, "Brother, the six of us are armed, so we are not afraid. But for safety reasons, we still need to find a few helpers." Jiaran understood and took advantage of Brother Cat, the temporary storyteller, to drink water and asked Luzong, "Brother Lu, do you have anyone secretly accompanying you?" Luzong was stunned for a moment, with a bit of surprise in his eyes, but he still said truthfully, "There should be 4 people, but they will only take action when I am in danger." "Can you help me send a message secretly, without being followed by anyone, and send a letter back to the fleet?" Jiaran asked. "Yes, this is easy," Luzong nodded. Jiaran quickly wrote a letter and gave it to Luzong. "Please ask your people to see if anyone is watching outside, and then secretly send this letter to my uncle." Luzong stood up and walked to the opposite room. Half an hour later, the young man from the Lu family brought a note and sent it over, saying, "Sir, the fleet has received a reply, and there is indeed someone watching outside." Luzong frowned and handed the note directly to Jiaran without reading it. Jiaran unfolded it and saw that it was his uncle's handwriting, with only 6 words written: "Don't worry, pay attention to safety." Jiaran felt confident, so he asked Zhengwu and Zhenglu to prepare food. "Eat and drink enough before you can face another experience in the evening. As night falls, everything should be completely silent, but due to the dragon boat fight tonight, people are coming and going on both sides of the inland river, making it very lively. There are all kinds of people carrying lanterns, selling snacks, and selling river lanterns for fun." Jiaran and others gathered near the window and could have a panoramic view of the excitement without going out. Brother Li smiled and said, "It's really worth spending the money. You can stand high and see far without having to go down and get sweaty." Brother Cat actually still wanted to join in the fun, but after what happened before, he was even more looking forward to another fun, so he took a piece of snack and lay on the window, eating and complaining. "Why did you eat all the spiced melon seeds on the road? At this time, it would be more interesting to eat the melon seeds and watch the fun." Jiaran knocked on his younger brother and said, "You still have the nerve to say that you ate the most on the road." Brother Cat was laughing and pretending to be stupid. "Boating was boring. He was young and his brothers were reluctant to let him work. So, most of the time, he sat on the side of the boat, staring at the scenery on both sides of the river in a daze. Of course, his mouth couldn't be idle. He ate here and there, and the box full of snacks his sister brought them was exhausted. Luzon and Jiasu stopped watching after watching it for a while. They had something on their minds and couldn't put everything down and enjoy it. So the two of them retreated to the back, took the Jianghu safety manual and recited it silently. There are some truths in the manual, and they understand them, and they even listen to the instructions from their family members. But if it is written in black and white, easy to recite and interesting, they are more willing to learn more and imprint it in their minds. From now on, if you encounter traps like Bailey again, you will no longer be treated as a pie. Grn watched for a while and then came over to Porti. Luzon couldn't help but ask him, "Brother Lee, how did you find out that something was wrong with those people? And that woman, we really didn't find anything fishy." Grn smiled faintly, "Details determine success or failure. Don't panic when something happens, observe calmly, and you will find many differences. For example, the old man was bent over but didn't have a cane. He pretended to be a scholar, but there were no calluses on his wrists from writing." Luzon and Jiasu were both surprised when they heard this. They originally thought that Grn had already revealed a lot of flaws in public, but they didn't expect that there were more details. Jiasu couldn't help but ask, "What about the woman, the one with the basket?" Grn took a sip of tea and said, "This woman doesn't have many flaws, but when she came up she accused us, not just to watch the fun. And she is well dressed, but she only has a handful of chicken feather vegetables in the basket. Chicken feather vegetables are the cheapest vegetables here. They were sold in the market just now. They cost 5 handfuls for a penny, and she only had a handful. Where did they come from? You can't just put it in casually, it's just a show. These are all guesses, but it has to be said that they are indeed not consistent with common sense and are worthy of doubt." Jiasu blinked twice, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and asked dryly, "We just walked half of the market and ate some shrimp cakes. You even know the prices of vegetables here. This is amazing." Grn didn't think there was anything great about this, and asked instead, "We are here to experience, not to see the scenery, but more to see the food prices in various states, capitals, and towns, and then the customs and customs. In the future, when taking exams, if the questions are related to people's livelihood, the articles you write must be meaningful. After all, the court's selection of materials is for the herdsman, not to write more good poems and praise the scenery of Tianwu. Beauty." Luzon and Jiasu looked at each other, as if they were enlightened, and suddenly felt that they had traveled all this way in vain. The so-called experience, the real meaning is just like what Grn said. Luzon and Jiasu both stood up and solemnly "Thank you, Brother Lee, for your advice." Grn quickly waved his hand, pushed them to sit down, and said with a smile, "We are just chatting casually, not much advice. Everyone has their own pursuits in life. I have 7 brothers, and I am the eldest. If I want to support my family, I must take the scientific examination. Therefore, I pay more attention to people's livelihood and the like. But you don't have such pressure. It's not a bad thing if you like to enjoy the scenery on the road." The three of them chatted and drank tea. From time to time, they heard Brother Lee and Brother Cat shouting and cheering by the window, cheering for the dragon boat below. Then, they also smiled and stepped forward to join in the fun. The dragon boat race lasted until the middle of the moon, when it ended. The people gradually dispersed and the streets became completely quiet. Grn closed the window and assigned a room to sleep. A young man diligently came up with a bucket of hot water and went from house to house knocking on doors to ask people if they wanted hot water to wash their feet. Everyone said they were too tired and went to sleep directly, so the boy went down too. Actually, the boy didn't know it at all. As soon as he came downstairs, People in the other 3 rooms gathered in the Riverview room. Jiasu was a little nervous and asked, "Brother Li, are you sure those evil people will definitely come tonight and enter this room first?" End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 662. Chapter 662. The arrow is on the string and must be fired. I'm not sure they will behave as I expected. Grn lowered his voice and continued, but when the boy was carrying the water upstairs, I heard the shopkeeper ask him what he was doing. Obviously, this inn does not have the rules to take the initiative to provide hot water to guests. Even the guests who lived in the innermost room complained when they passed by our door that the boy was too lazy and would not work without being paid. We didn't give a reward or give any instructions, but he was so proactive and attentive that he even asked about the 4 rooms we booked. I suspect he wanted to determine which room we all lived in so that he could report the news to the evildoers. I just appeared in your room on purpose. There are only 2 younger brothers in this room, so they should be the least able to resist. As long as I catch them first, I will be under the control of others, and you 2 will be left, not to mention any extra effort. Luzong and Jiasu were speechless when they heard this. Jiaran's mind really pushed them to the ground and crushed them again and again. They are all about the same age, and both have scholarly reputations, but around Jiaran, they always feel that they are idiots who don't understand anything. You must know that no matter where they were in the past, they were talents praised by others. Ahem, Luzon managed to find some confidence and whispered, "I have already ordered my men. If we are unable to handle it, they will come out and take over." "This is best." Jiaran nodded and quietly told his 2 younger brothers, "Brother Cat, a gap has been moved out of the bed. Whenever someone comes in, you can hide under the bed. You must not move unless I ask you to come out. You know." "I got it, brother." Brother Cat deservedly wilted. Obviously, this arrangement hurt his young blood, but he also knew that this was his elder brother protecting him. Jiaran rubbed his little head and told Brother Li, "Try to protect yourself and don't be reckless. You can't take it lightly until the villain is completely subdued. Do you understand?" "I know, brother." Brother Li deserves to be happy, but I don't know if he can really obey me. Jiaran thought for a while, took out a medicine bottle from his belt, poured out 4 small pills, and handed them to Luzon. "These are antidote pills. They are very valuable and very effective. Each of you must take 1 pill and keep it. If someone dares to use poison or put poison on the weapon, take it immediately. At least you can save your life." Luzon quickly divided it between Jiasu and their 2 young men. Finally, he put the pill under his nose and smelled it. It didn't taste bitter, but had a refreshing aura. Just like the deep mountain forest, the aura of the essence of vegetation. Jiaran still wanted to give some leftovers to the dog, but saw that Brother Li had already given them to them. A group of people, exactly 10 masters and servants together, were hiding in a room. Occasionally speaking at a lower voice, time does not pass slowly. At the 4th watch, Brother Cat was so sleepy that he snored a little on the bed, which made Brother Li, who was lying next to him pretending to be a little tired. Jiaran, Luzon, and Jiasu hid behind the screen, and the young men of the Lu family and Jia family hid at the end of the bed. Zheng Lu and Zheng Qi were strong in martial arts, so they hid in the corner of the room, which was closest to the window. Go Shenger was hiding beside the bed, protecting Brother Li and Brother Cat nearby. Just when everyone thought that no one would come tonight and that it was unnecessary, there was sudden movement outside the window. The last quarter moon was not so bright, but it still clearly printed the 2 figures on the window lattice. A bamboo pipe pierced the window paper, and wisps of green smoke dispersed in. Luzon and Jiasu's nervous hearts almost jumped out of their chests, and they quickly stuffed the pills into their mouths. The same was true for Jiaran. He suppressed his panic and patted Luzon and Jiasu gently. After a while, a dagger was inserted into the crack of the window, The small flap was opened, and then two people jumped in from the window. Grn and the others could see clearly that the man and the old man who came in were none other than the liar's accomplices during the day. They were very vigilant. They first looked at the two boys on the bed. When they saw that there was no movement from them, the big man breathed a sigh of relief and turned to wave down. Immediately two more people jumped in, one with a sharp mouth and a monkey cheek, and a young woman, but they were not familiar faces. The four of them gathered together and closed the window. The old man lowered his voice and said, "Let's fight quickly. Capture the two cubs first, and then go to the next door. Ask for the money first, stabilize them, and kill them when the money is obtained." "I understand, Uncle Kong," the man responded. The three of them were obedient, and it was obvious that the old man was their leader and think tank. The man raised his feet and reached the bedside. He bent down and was about to reach out to lift Brother Lee, who was sleeping outside, when he suddenly heard a slight sound, like a machine turning. The next moment, his chest was penetrated. The severe pain made him open his mouth to say something, but no sound came out at all, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. The man with the sharp mouth and monkey cheeks became a little impatient when he saw him half kneeling beside the bed. He stepped forward and complained, "They are just two little brats, what do you think is good about them?" As he spoke, he was about to push the man away, but his instinctive alertness made him suddenly feel something bad, so he ducked away. Poof! A sharp arrow shot through his arm, causing him to scream in pain. This scream seemed to turn on some switch, and the room immediately became chaotic. Brother Lee turned around and kicked his younger brother directly into the bed. Then, using the cover of the bed curtain, he fired 3 more crossbow arrows at the man with the sharp mouth and monkey cheeks. The man with the sharp mouth and monkey cheeks was on guard and quickly hid by the window, but was pierced into the shoulder by Zheng Liu's dagger. On the other hand, the burly man, who was about to die, received 2 more arrows and went to see the Lord of Hell completely. The old man and woman standing in the middle of the room reacted quickly and started to find cover when they heard something was wrong. Unfortunately, Grn had aimed at them long ago, and the 3 crossbow arrowed. The old man hid over, but the woman was hit by the right abdomen and thighs. The old man was also vicious. He grabbed the woman as a shield and retreated to the window, forcing Brother Lee and Grn to finish the crossbow arrows. The man with the sharp mouth and monkey cheeks was still fighting to the death with Zheng Liu. Only Zheng Qi and Go Shenger were left. At this time, they also raised their daggers and pointed at the old man. The old man pulled out a foot-long dagger from his waist and fought with Zheng Qi. Go Shenger also wanted to join, but the space in the room was too small and he couldn't use it, so he could only sweep the formation on one side, hunting from time to time to distract the old man. The servants of the Liu family and the Jiao family have learned some skills from the nursing school in the mansion, otherwise they would not go out with their masters. But when you meet these quacks, it's completely unsatisfactory. The 2 of them also had daggers in their hands, but they could only be on the outside, protecting Brother Lee and Brother Cat on the other side of the bed. Grn saw Zheng Liu and Zheng Qi fighting, so he shouted and lit the lamp. Then, he rushed to help Zheng Liu, planning to deal with the man with the sharp mouth and monkey cheeks first. The gentleman's swords learned in the academy are mostly just fancy swords, beautiful but useless. Grn is using a dagger now, and he just practiced it at home and on the road for a while. But at a critical moment of life and death, he had to protect his 2 younger brothers, so he became a little more brave. While the man with a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks was forced by Zheng Liu and could not turn around, he pierced the man's back with a dagger. The man let out a short scream and finally lay down softly. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 663. Chapter 663. The boat capsized in the gutter. Zheng Lu took a few breaths from exhaustion and went to help Zheng Qi, but Zheng Qi was kicked out by the old man. It is obvious that the old man's kung fu is beyond everyone's expectation. Just when everyone thought the old man would jump out of the window and escape, he came running towards Jiren, holding the short knife high in his hand. "Little brat, I've been traveling around the world all my life, killing dozens of young men from rich families, but tonight the boat capsized in the ditch, and the brat is in the hands of you today. Even if I die, I have to take you with me." Just as Luzon was fumbling to light the oil lamp, the old man held up a dagger with a ferocious face, frightening everyone's heart. Jiren gritted his teeth and raised his dagger to block the blow. Unexpectedly, 3 crossbow arrows suddenly flew out from under the bed and hit the old man in the chest and abdomen. The old man's body was penetrated, and gravity made him take a step back. The ferocious look on his face was replaced by one full of disbelief and unwillingness. Why did it fail this time? There is nothing surprising about these people, but why do they carry such powerful crossbows with them, and why do they have such powerful young men? What is wrong? The old man fell down with a pop and died with his eyes open. Jiren quickly pounced on him and slashed his neck with another knife, completely severing his throat. The same goes for Zheng Lu, who also made up for the man with the sharp mouth and monkey cheeks and the burly man. As for the woman, she has already been turned into a hedgehog by the crossbow arrows, so there is no need to do anything more. The smell of blood filled the room, making everyone's breathing a little heavier. In the end, it was Brother Cat who cried under the bed, "Woo, brother, I'm scared." Jiren quickly put away the dagger, rushed over and took out his younger brother, comforting him, "Don't be afraid, my eldest brother is here, the bad guys are all dead." "Woo, brother, I killed someone, I saw him raising the knife, and I was afraid you would be hurt, so I fired the arrow. Woo, I was afraid." Brother Cat was frightened. During daily practice, he had shot some birds and pheasants, and he didn't think anything of it at all. But tonight, he shot someone. Moreover, under the light, he could clearly see the old man's death state. He hugged his brother, scratched his neck and cried desperately, as if he could cry out his fear. Luzon and Jiasu came forward, wanting to say a few words of comfort but not knowing what to say. Compared to Brother Cat, they are even more useless and are not helpful at all. Especially Luzon, who promised that his secret guards would take action, but things happened so suddenly that it only took a few sips of tea from beginning to end, and it was over before he had time to react. It was Brother Li who jumped out of the bed, slapped his brother on the head, and cursed, "Why are you crying? This is not at home, cheer up. This old guy wants to kill my eldest brother. If you kill him, you will save your eldest brother when you go home and talk to your grandma and sister. Your sister will definitely reward you, even the 4th and 5th brothers will envy you." These words worked really well. Brother Cat blinked twice, wiped his tears immediately, and asked, "Then I also want a clairvoyant. Can my sister give it to me?" "Don't talk about clairvoyance, there are all clairvoyances." Brother Li knew his younger brother so well that he made Brother Cat happy with just one sentence. Brother Cat immediately shouted, "Okay, I will write to my sister when I get to Quanzhou and ask her to prepare it for me." Seeing this, Jiren felt relieved, but also felt dumbfounded. At this time, there was already a noise outside. The fight just now had woken up the tenants inside, as well as the shopkeeper and waiters downstairs. The shopkeeper and his waiter came up with oil lamps and shouted loudly in the corridor, asking if something had happened. Jiren asked Zheng Lu and Zheng Qi to protect his 2 younger brothers, and then opened the door with Go Sheng-er. Luzon quickly followed him, while Jiasu hesitated and fell behind. After just a dead fight, Jiren was stained with blood, and the shopkeeper and guy were shocked. "What's going on? Kill someone." Jiren nodded and said loudly, "Shopkeeper, We were sleeping well, but suddenly a thief opened the window and jumped in to kill people and steal money. However, we were all subdued and there were casualties. We need to report to the yamen and ask the officials to come over. You send a boy to lead the way." The shopkeeper's eyes rolled around, somewhat unwillingly. When opening a business, the last thing you want to do is to deal with the yamen. On weekdays, if you have nothing to do, you need to take care of it. Today, something obviously happened. In this way, he was reluctant to respond. Luzon was waiting impatiently and was about to scold him when Jiaran stopped him and said to the shopkeeper, "Shopkeeper, when one of your boys was delivering water, he helped these thieves to find out which room among us and how many people live there. If you don't take the initiative to report it to the official, I have reason to suspect that you are working with the thief." "No, no," the shopkeeper finally couldn't bear it any longer and quickly stopped him. "This young master can't talk nonsense. I'll have someone take you to report to the official." Jiaran then took out the post from the marquee and handed it to Go Shenger. Go Shenger took the post and left with the boy. Jiaran and others secretly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the official came over, they would be safe for the time being. Actually, Jiaran doesn't want to take away Mr. Ho's post about this kind of thing. However, the name of Shanbo Mansion in his family is only useful in Zindu. When he goes out, he is far less intimidating than the military Prince Zintinghao. If you want the government office not to create difficulties and resolve the matter smoothly, you can only rely on the deterrence of the marquis. The shopkeeper didn't dare to step forward, but smelling the strong smell of blood, he cautiously asked, "Sir, I don't know how many thieves have come. Is anyone injured? Do you need to see a doctor?" Jiaran shook his head and replied, "There is no need to find a doctor." The shopkeeper still wanted to ask, but Go Shenger and the boy who had gone downstairs came back. The shopkeeper stared, and before he could be scolded, a middle-aged man and 7 or 8 officials walked out from behind them. Jiaran's eyes turned red as soon as he saw the man, and he shouted, "Uncle!" Li Zhensheng stepped forward, looked him up and down, and asked, "Are you injured?" "No, uncle, thank you that my sister has prepared all the things." Jiaran suppressed his weak mood and said quickly, "There are 4 people in total, they are all the people who sold their bodies to bury their fathers during the day, and one of them has special kung fu. Well, we spent a lot of effort to kill them all." "Kill them all?" Before Li Zhensheng could speak, the shopkeeper rolled his eyes and fainted from anxiety. The most important thing in doing business is reputation. If someone dies in his shop, what customers will dare to come in the future? Li Zhensheng only glanced at the shopkeeper and ignored him. He turned around and handed over his hands to the leading official, saying, "Wang Kaptu, thank you for your hard work. This matter involves Jianghu people. If the children are not ruthless, I'm afraid they will be eaten up by now loss." Jiaran Chai's uncle received the news from him, so he found an official and waited outside. At this moment, he followed up and said, "Wang Kaptu, these people and their accomplices, a beautiful woman, a man with an injured foot, and a middle-aged woman, should all be waiting at their home. In addition, there is a young man in this inn who is an inside agent. The shopkeeper knows who he is. If you want to investigate, you can get clues from this man's mouth. Also, there is an old man in this room. When he fought with us before, he said that dozens of rich young men died in their hands. This must be a big case. If it can be investigated, it will definitely be a great achievement." Sure enough, Wang Kaptu's eyes lit up at that moment, and he hurriedly handed over his hands and went into the house. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 664. Chapter 664, Responsibilities of the Eldest Grandson. Brother Li and Brother Mao rushed out. When they saw their father, they hugged him and refused to let go, like naughty children who had been bullied. "Dad, we have you, I'm scared," These people are bullying us, I want to go home, I miss my grandma. Dad, they jumped in from the window with knives. It's terrible. Luzong and Jiasu, who were following closely behind them, slipped and almost fell to their knees. Half of the blood on their feet was the work of these two boys. They are obviously two tigers, but when they see their father, they turn into well-behaved lambs. Li Zhensheng hugged his son and comforted him repeatedly, "Don't be afraid, Dad is always outside. If he hears something bad, he will lead someone to rush up to him. You have done a good job just now, but when it comes to risking your life, you must be ruthless. Only the dead can ensure that they do not hurt others." At this time, the official had already checked the house and arrested the boy. It turns out that it was no coincidence that the young guy was working as an inside agent. This group of thieves lived next door to his house. The thieves knew that Grn and others had settled here, so they took advantage of the situation and hired a young man to act as an internal agent. Wang Kaptu immediately went back to the government office to find help, and in the dim light of dawn, he ran to dig out the thief's lair. In the room, 4 corpses were also carried downstairs. The shopkeeper had just woken up, but when he saw this posture, he tilted his head and fainted again. He really didn't want to face this miserable situation soberly. Li Zhensheng opened 3 rooms in another in diagonally opposite. It was here last night that he and the officials waited and paid close attention. At this moment, he took the children over. Bringing clean clothes from the ship, the Grn brothers all changed. Luzong and Jiasu did not participate in the fight, and they were not dirty. Only the soles of the shoes were stained with blood, so the boy took them off and brushed them before wearing them. As soon as he finished his work, Lu Yang smiled and carried a food box, delivered several portions of white porridge, vegetarian steamed buns, and a plate of pickled cucumbers. He was also waiting outside last night. When he heard that everything was fine, he went to buy breakfast. Although his surname is Lu, he and the Li brothers have worn the same pair of trousers since childhood. At this moment, Brother Li and Brother Cat both ran to hug him. He said, "I know you showed off your power last night, and you will be able to brag about it for half a year after you go home. You guys eat first, and I will rush to tell Ji that he is guarding the fleet. Maybe he is thinking about this, and his eyebrows are so anxious. It's going to be on fire." Brother Li and Brother Mao then let them go, and Lu Yang quickly hurried back to the dock. Luzong and Jiasu were also invited to the table to eat. This night was quite thrilling. It not only consumed our energy, but also our physical strength. When the crisis was over, the boys' stomachs were all growling with hunger. So they gathered around the porridge and steamed buns, lowered their heads and ate. Li Zhensheng sat aside and looked at them with a smile, without urging or asking questions. Until the boys had eaten and drank enough, and the panic in their brows and eyes had faded, he said, "Grn, tell us everything from beginning to end, without leaving out even a single detail." Grn nodded and talked from the moment they got off the boat until just now. Luzong and Jiasu were ashamed. Jiasu was the initiator of this big trouble when his money was exposed. Luzong agreed to let the secret guards take action, but in the end he let the Grn brothers bear all the risks. Both of them apologized quickly and sincerely. Li Zhensheng did not blame them, nor could he blame them. After all, they are all academy students, just peers, not descendants of the Li family. He waved his hand and said a few polite words, then turned to Grn and asked with a cold face, "Have you reflected on this matter? Do you know where you handled it improperly?" Grn nodded, stood up and stood beside his uncle respectfully with his hands lowered, and said, "Uncle, I have reflected on this matter. I was reckless and took my brothers into danger. Yesterday, knowing that this group of people might retaliate, I should have taken my brothers back to the fleet. I should not have stayed behind, thinking that we were armed, and rashly facing a group of desperados. First of all, I am not familiar with them and cannot know myself and the enemy well, so the countermeasures I formulate must have variables. Secondly, I shouldn't place my greatest reliance on others. If there is a problem with such reliance, my life will not be guaranteed. I will never be so reckless in the future. I will always put safety first and act prudently. Li Zhenshen's face became much better now. He nodded slightly and said, speaking of which, I can't blame you. Being young and vigorous is inevitable. Back then, I was also ignorant of the world and insisted on traveling to study. I wandered for more than 10 years, causing my family to suffer. But from now on, you must always remember that you are the eldest grandson of the third generation of our family. The family's foundation depends on you, and the 6 brothers and 1 sister must rely on you as the eldest brother. Your decision is likely to affect the rise and fall of the entire family. Therefore, the family does not ask you to make achievements, but only wants you to learn the word stability. Think twice before you act, make decisions before you act, and never take risks if you are not completely sure. Today's lesson must be remembered, and there must be no next time. Uncle, I have made a note of it and will never do it again in the future. Jiren lowered his head and solemnly responded. Brother Li and Brother Mao were reluctant to bear the punishment of their eldest brother, so they quickly stepped forward to apologize together. Brother Li said, Dad, I made a mistake too. I shouldn't let my eldest brother bear the responsibility alone. Brother Cat was also jumping up and down, shouting, Dad, it's all my fault. I was the one who made my eldest brother stay to watch the dragon boat. Li Zhenshen glared at his 2 sons and scolded, if you don't jump out, I won't forget you. Brother Li hit too hard yesterday. If you kick up the fake corpse, you can comfort him with money in time. These charlatans won't be too embarrassed, so they won't kill you all, so there won't be this disaster. And Brother Cat, you have strongly requested me to come out this time. Whether it's good or not, you have to grit your teeth and hold on, and you can't say anything about going home. You are now old enough. You have to learn to bear the cost of your choices. Your brothers are already trying their best to protect you. You can't take their protection for granted and you can't hide behind them all your life. Do you understand? Brother Li and Brother Mao both shrank their necks and nodded quickly, not daring to argue a word. Lu Zong and Jiasu listened, feeling guilty and envious. Their fathers and elders will also teach them, but they will not break it into pieces and distinguish it in detail. Although Li Zhensheng had a cold face and a stern tone, anyone could hear his concern and love. Li Zhensheng didn't know what they thought, so he continued to teach his children, tell me, how should we deal with the aftermath of this matter? Brother Li and Brother Mao both looked at Jiren, as if they were following the lead of their eldest brother. Jiren thought for a while and said, over at the Yamen, if we arrest someone, we will definitely be able to find out something, which is considered a credit. Let's do some more work at home and we can end it. As for the inn, let's pay 50 taels of silver. After all, their guy acted as an internal agent and led the wolf into the house, and he was wrong in the first place. These 50 taels are purely a moral help from us. Li Zhenshen nodded and wanted to say something, but the head catcher Wang came over. When he entered the door, he burst out laughing, cupped his hands and thanked him. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 665. Chapter 665, To cut the weeds, we need to get rid of the roots. In addition to Mr. Li, we have just raided the lair of this gang of thieves. Fortunately, we have fulfilled our mission and captured 3 other liar accomplices, and there is also an unexpected harvest. This group of thieves is running around, not only cheating, but also kidnapping and selling children. We just found 2 children in the cellar. They are the same 2 children who reported missing to the Yamen yesterday. Now, we have solved the case together. Perhaps it was because of the unusual status of these 2 children that Wang Baodu smiled so hard that his lips reached to his ears. Li Zhensheng was also happy when he heard this. In this way, the government office will benefit and it will be easier to manage. He quickly stood up, returned the salute with his hands, and said with a smile, "Congratulations to the king for arresting the head. This is a great achievement. Your promotion and promotion are just around the corner." Same joy, Wang Kaptu said very politely, "It's all thanks to a few young masters, these thieves are quite capable. If the young masters hadn't defeated the four most powerful ones, it would have been difficult for us to catch them." Li Zhensheng invited him to sit down and drink tea. After listening to him talk about the entire arrest process, he felt that nothing was missing, so he asked, "These thieves have entered the government prison. How will they be punished?" Wang Baotu wanted to make friends, and it was no secret. He said, "According to Tianwu law, the minimum sentence is 20 years of hard labor. If there is another trial, if there are other cases, he may be sentenced to beheading." Li Zhensheng's eyes flashed and he said with a smile, "Tianwu's laws are still too merciful. Such evil thieves only need to do hard labor? If I tell you, only beheading can make the people truly feel at ease and live and work in peace and contentment. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep peacefully at night, and my children won't dare to go out and play at will." Wang Kaptu understood and immediately responded, "The officer is right, the matter has not been finalized for the time being. It has to wait for the county magistrate's interrogation. No one knows the outcome." Li Zhensheng said, "This time we passed by and caused trouble for you. If you have the opportunity, you should really pay a visit to the county magistrate and thank him in person." "You're welcome, Yuan. There must be this opportunity." Wang Kaptu smiled and handed over his hand again. Jiaran and others have been standing by, listening quietly. Brother Cat was young and couldn't hold his temper. He couldn't help but interrupt and said, "Dad, our arrows have been taken away. My sister made them." Li Zhensheng glared at his son, and then said to Wang Kaptu, "Wang Kaptu, please forgive me, the child is young and immature. However, no wonder the child is reluctant to part with these arrows. When they left home, my niece, the princess, was concerned about the safety of her brothers outside, so she specially found good iron and entrusted the craftsman of Xintinghao Mansion to make these arrowheads, which are really rare. If the investigation at the Yamen is over, can this arrow be returned?" Wang Kaptu was surprised when he heard this, and quickly responded, "Oh, it turns out those arrowheads are so valuable, and they were prepared by the princess for the brothers. Don't worry, I will have someone deliver them to you when you get back soon." "Thank you, Mr. Wang." Brother Cat saluted and thanked him, which made Mr. Wang very happy. After saying a few more words, Wang Kaptu was about to go back. Li Zhensheng sent him to the door and, needless to say, stuffed a banknote without leaving any trace. So, after everyone had breakfast and rested for a while, someone came from the Yamen and politely invited Li Zhensheng to come over. Li Zhensheng took Jiaran with him, prepared a generous gift, and went to see the county magistrate. He also talked about what happened last night. The county magistrate's family is also in Xindu, and he has heard a little bit about the Li family's affairs. "I'm not familiar with anything else, but the corn and potatoes that will be planted next year were obtained by the Li family from Fan people, so he always knows. There is also Xintinghao, the backer of the Li family, who is now the protector of the entire Tianwu. Even if he had great courage, he would not dare not be polite to the Li family." So the two parties had a good chat, drank 2 cups of tea, and the incident last night was over. On the way back, Li Zhensheng went to the inn again and gave money to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper originally wanted to transfer the business back to his hometown to farm because the business was not doing well. After experiencing this incident, I was even more frightened and was already at the Zhangluo Inn. Getting this money was an unexpected gain. Not only did I stop complaining, I was also very grateful. These things were so busy that the fleet had to stay at the dock for an extra day. On the other side of the passenger ship, the gentleman heard a few words and restricted the students not to get off the ship. The students thought that the Lee family was delayed because of unloading goods, so they didn't complain. Early on the next morning, the fleet finally set off. Luzon and Jiasu were called by the gentleman and spoke a few words carefully. When he came out, the young man of the Lu family came close to his master and whispered, "Sir, those fellow swindlers committed suicide in prison yesterday out of fear of crime. No one is left alive." Luzon was stunned for a moment, then waved his hand to signal the boy to step back. Jiasu reacted slowly for a moment, and when he came to his senses, he shouted, "Is this, eradicating the roots?" Luzon gave him a tug, looked at the cargo ships ahead, and said softly, "They deserve it? If it were me, I would do the same." Jiasu took a deep breath and responded, "Yes, he deserves it. But I just thought Mr. Lee looked gentle, but I didn't expect his methods to be so ruthless." Luzon nodded. "If you think about it carefully, how could the Lee family have grown from a small farm to where they are now without any ability and means? Brother Lee, none of them are simple, and that one, Princess Kangal, she is already very experienced at a young age. Earlier, I wrote a letter back and told my father how to rescue him. My father also taught the doctors in the mansion and the military doctors in the camp. It happened that someone got stuck eating a date and was rescued. This method is really miraculous and unheard of." The Lee family announced it directly without asking for anything in return. Their magnanimity is beyond the reach of ordinary people. He thought for a moment and then said, "I have a feeling that following our trip to Guangzhou and following the Lee family may be more rewarding than following the academy." "You want to?" Jiasu guessed what he was thinking and resisted a little. The danger last night was still vivid in his mind. Luzon smiled, "Yes, it's what you think. But I have to prepare a generous gift, firstly to make amends for what happened before, and secondly, to be enough to seduce the Lee family and let us practice with the Lee brothers." Jiasu sighed inwardly. He could no longer persuade him, so he could only risk his life to accompany the gentleman. Not talking about the fleet, all the way to Guangzhou, the boys of the Lee family stumbled and struggled in this world, and the beatings made them stronger. Let's just talk about the weather in the winter months in Broken Gold Beach. It's getting colder and colder due to several heavy snowfalls. Those who can do it will start to do it honestly. Of course, the noodle workshop in Erkin is still as lively as ever. Because of the cold weather, the meat sauce noodles are not afraid of spoiling, so we can increase production. So, here in Zinken, idle villagers occasionally go to do odd jobs when the workshops are too busy. Of course, most of them are women. Men have to join the patrol team, maintain the fruit trees on the mountain during the winter, clean the cellars frequently, make sure the pork bellies running all over the pig house are fed and sleep well, cut corn stalks with guillotines, and feed the cattle and horses. In short, hard-working farmers can find work every moment. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 666. Chapter 666, Old Mrs. Lee loves the new and hates the old. Naughty boys, when they got up from their beds in the morning, they grabbed their school bags and ran to school without having time to fasten their cotton-padded jackets. When school is over, I always take the opportunity to go to the river. Seeing that the ice was frozen solid, they took out their ice sledges and ice whips like crazy, and rushed to the river screaming. Until it gets dark and their wives come looking for them and pull their ears, they will be reluctant to go home. The old people are willing to gather in Uncle Zhao's yard, find a place sheltered from the wind and the sun, and light a fire. The old brothers were weaving wicker baskets in their hands and talking about the past and present. Occasionally when the mood gets better, I would stay for a glass of wine in the evening, and then go home slightly tipsy to sleep on the hot kong. Lao He and the others have been back for more than 10 days in a blink of an eye. Everyone has gained a lot of weight and slept well enough, so grass grows in his heart again. On this day, Lao He went to the Li family yard to salute. When he saw the young master, he said, "Princess, there is still more than a month before the new year. It's okay for us to be idle like this. Do you have any errands to give? It's funny to hear the good news. There are really people in this world who are restless." But she was also worried because there was really no good errand in front of her. "It's too far to go to Chuanzhou Prefecture, and I definitely won't be able to come back in time before the end of the year. You can go out during the Mid-Autumn Festival, but you have to gather at home during the New Year. If you go to a nearby place, there is nothing to do." She could only put a basket of fruits for Lao He and let him go back first. Mrs. Li took Mrs. Wen and Wenjuan to do needlework on the Kong. When she heard about this, Mrs. Wen was moved. She told Jiyan, Fu Niuer, when Mr. Guo passed away, he told Wen how to move the bones of his parents and rebuild the tomb together. Should I ask Wen how if he has this intention, go with Lao He and the others? Jiyan's eyes lit up and he nodded. At the beginning, the Guo family was buried by the people in their village. Even now, when talking about that tragic situation, the villagers still sigh and cannot forget it. If we could help Guo Wenhao and bring back the bones of these poor people and bury them completely, the villagers would be relieved of their minor worries. Okay, senior aunt. Ask someone to ask Guo Wenhao. More than a month ago this year is enough for a trip. Jiyan nodded and said, "It's cold in winter and the road is difficult, but the same the barbarians also have difficulty moving, so it's a good time to go to the north." Mrs. Wen asked sister-in-law Qian to go back and take a look at her farm. The couple moved to Sujintan and have never gone back. They also have to be careful to prevent the slaves from losing control and causing trouble privately. Sister-in-law Qian returned in the afternoon. "Madam, Princess, Master Wenhao said thank you to the princess for lending her manpower. He wants to follow the team to Jiangbei and personally welcome back the bones of his parents and elders. He will bear all the expenses for the whole journey, and he will pay an additional 300 taels of hard-earned silver." Jiyan called Lao He over and told him the matter. Lao He immediately agreed. They were very familiar with it as they had fought in Jiangbei before. Besides, this time we are going into the mountain to retrieve the bones, which is not a difficult task. So, after a day of preparation, Lao He's team quickly set off the next day with Guo Wenhao, a young man, in his team. Mr. Wen felt sorry for this disciple who was young and had no one to rely on. He once wanted to persuade him to stay and just let Lao He and others go into the mountain. But Guo Wenhao insisted on filial piety. Mr. Wen had no choice but to let him go. A light snow fell, and a large bowl of pickled cabbage and bone sticks was placed on the Li family's dinner table. The family fills a bowl with it and sprinkles a little bit of hot chili pepper. After drinking it, it feels sour and spicy, and all the coldness can be easily driven away. Physician Zhang rarely came out of his small courtyard and came to Li's house for a dental sacrifice. After eating and drinking enough, before leaving, he said, "Who asked for medical treatment earlier? I have free time tomorrow, so let the patient come over." Old Mrs. Li was so happy that she hurriedly asked someone to go to the city to help Jia. Madam reports the news. So, on the second day, at 3 o'clock in the morning, Mrs. Jia and Beizu accompanied Mrs. Xing and her daughter to Sujintan. Tao Hongying and Mrs. Wen stood in front of the door, smiling at each other. Jiyan and Beizu hugged each other as soon as they met, chatting and laughing non-stop. Mrs. Xing's face looked unhealthy and pale. Perhaps she put on makeup specially for the sake of appearance. It's a pity that she has been sick all year round, and her skin is dry and saggy. The makeup applied on her skin does not conform to the skin at all, but makes her look even more deliberate. Miss Warner wore an aqua blue coat, an ivory horse-faced skirt, and a lotus green cloak. She was still dignified and gentle. She has been supporting her mother, even if there is a maid and mother-in-law by her side, she never leaves her, which shows that she is a filial and attentive person. Everyone arrived at the main room and met Mrs. Lee. The first time Mrs. Lee met Miss Wanner, she fell in love with her at almost the first sight. After exchanging a few words with Mrs. Singh, she held Wanner's hand and kept talking. Mrs. Singh, how did you raise such a good girl? Our family really needs to learn from your experience. Look, Miss Wanner is good-looking, dignified, and polite. Look at this girl in our family. She is jumping like a monkey all day long, which is a headache. Even if she is 3 points more stable than Wanner, I don't have to worry. Ji Yinzhen and Beizu held the fruit basket and were picking the biggest and reddest one. Suddenly she felt her grandma's slightly disgusted gaze, and she quickly protested, "Nah, I'm your granddaughter. We don't bring someone who likes the new and dislikes the old. Now that a beautiful sister has come to the house, don't you love Funiu anymore?" Everyone laughed when they heard this, and Mrs. Singh hurriedly said, "The princess is so smart and cute, how could the old lady not like it? It's just a joke. I have always been in poor health, which has hindered Wanner. She has to take care of the house at a young age. In order to convince the public, she has to keep a straight face." In fact, Wanner was as lively as the princess when she was a child. After saying that, she couldn't help but feel the itching in her throat, covered her mouth with a handkerchief, and started coughing again. Perhaps she was afraid that everyone would dislike her, so she explained while coughing, "I'm, cough, 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 but I'm not a human being." Everyone looked pitiful and tried to persuade him one after another. "Mrs. You can just peel an orange and suppress your cough." Singh Wainer fed her mother tea and helped pat her vest, she was extremely skillful. Although she quickly comforted her mother, it still made everyone feel distressed. "Shui Ling, hurry up and ask for Dr. Zhang." After he looked at it, everyone felt relieved. Mrs. Lee gave the order, and Shui Ling ran away immediately. Soon, Divine Dr. Zhang walked into the courtyard with his hands behind his back. Shui Ling followed behind with a medicine box and secretly gestured towards Jiyan. Jiyan quickly asked Beizu in a low voice. Beizu ate half of the fruit before he jumped off the ground, ran to his mother-in-law, and hugged a long box. Everyone had just stood up to greet Divine Dr. Zhang. They saw that Divine Dr. Zhang looked bad, a little embarrassed and puzzled. As a result, Beizu ran over and handed the long box to Dr. Zhang. "Grandpa Zhang, this is the medicinal material that my mother found with great difficulty. I give it to you. Please be sure to cure my aunt." Miracle. Dr. Zhang twitched his nose twice and quickly opened the box. His smile changed at that time. "Centennial Polygonum multiflorum. Where did you find this?" Mrs. Jia secretly breathed a sigh of relief and responded, "This is a New Year's gift from a good friend of my husband 2 years ago. Our family doesn't know much about medicine, so it is useless to keep such good medicinal materials. This time I came here because I wanted to dedicate it to the miracle doctor, so as not to leave it in our house and collect dust." Shenji Zhang coughed twice and felt a little guilty when he remembered his bad attitude just now. He responded, "I got up early, I have a headache and I can't make a prescription, and I'm a little anxious. However, having this multiflorum will solve a big problem. Let me see the patient first. If I can't diagnose and cure it, I can't take this multiflorum, either." He said this, but did not put down the box in his hand. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 667. Chapter 667, Fate is not meant to meet a noble person. Jiyan saw it funny, and quickly stepped forward to help hold the box, and slapped him on the butt. "My master is invincible, there are only diseases that he doesn't want to cure, and there is never anything that cannot be cured." You stinky girl, you put me, an old man, on the fire again. Dr. Zhang rubbed his young apprentice's hair and then diagnosed Mr. Singh's pulse. Everyone in the room was in suspense, no one said a word, and the room was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Dr. Zhang has a bad temper, but he is extremely rigorous in his medical practice. Feel the pulse with both hands at the same time, check the fundus of the eyes and tongue coating, and ask about daily symptoms. He then breathed a sigh of relief, waved his hands and said, "It's not a big deal, the confinement disease has not been treated well, and the energy and blood have been lost over the years. Accumulated, this body is like a big tree that lacks water, slowly withering. If we can't make appropriate adjustments to the symptoms, we will definitely run out of gas in 3 years. Fortunately, it's not too late to come here for diagnosis and treatment. Starting from tomorrow, I will do acupuncture plus medicine for half a month. After half a month, I will just drink medicine. In this way, the effect will be seen in 1 month, and I can walk around. After half a year, I will be like a normal person. But after a long illness, my foundation has been damaged, and my lifespan can only be 60. No matter how long it is, it won't be enough. Even if Deluo Jinxian comes, there is nothing I can do. 1 month to go to the ground, half a year to recover? Is your life expectancy guaranteed to be 60 years? Others paid it back, but Mr. Singh and her daughter cried excitedly at that time. Over the years, the family has hired doctors ranging from 100 to 80, but none of them gave such clear results. Everyone tried to shirk the blame, fearing that they would be involved. Mr. Singh drank bowl after bowl of medicinal soup for many years until she became numb. Today, someone finally said there is hope. Singh Wainer was about to kneel down, but Dr. Zhang helped her up. Don't kneel down yet, wait until your mother is well. Remember, do acupuncture for half an hour every day for half a month, preferably in the morning when Yang Qi is rising. I'll go back and prepare the medicine first. As he spoke, divine Dr. Zhang happily took Xiaowu and went back. This time, Shuiling called a woman from the Singh family and followed her. After all, it takes the Singh family to prepare the medicine, so listen carefully to see if the old man has any other instructions. Mrs. Jia was so happy that she almost shed tears as she held her sister-in-law's hand, and quickly thanked Mrs. Li. "Auntie, our family is really meeting a noble person when they meet you. If my sister-in-law is cured this time, I will set up a longevity tablet for her and burn incense and kowtow every day." Mrs. Li quickly stopped her and said with a smile, "I know you are very happy, but let's not say such foreign words. Isn't it right for relatives and friends to do a little favor for each other? Besides, we can come and go often in the future. I'll definitely come to you when I'm in trouble." "Yes, yes, I listen to Auntie." Mrs. Jia shook old Mrs. Li's hand. "From now on, Auntie, don't bother me. I'll come over every now and then." Mrs. Wen said on the side, "Although Broken Gold Beach is not far from the city, it is troublesome for Mr. Singh to travel back and forth like this. If you don't mind, why not stay at our house for half a month? My husband and I are the only ones in my yard. My husband always stays overnight in the city. Most of the time I am alone, so I am lonely. Having more people to talk to me makes the yard more popular, which is really great." Mrs. Jia was moved when she heard this and immediately looked at her sister-in-law. Mrs. Singh was a little hesitant. She didn't want to cause trouble to others, but her body really couldn't support running back and forth. Mrs. Li has taken a fancy to Waner as her eldest daughter-in-law, so she naturally wants to spend more time with her and get to know her character better. So she also advised, "Mrs. It won't take long, just half a month. By then you will be fully recovered, and you will be able to go back in good health and surprise your family." Mrs. Bundle. Mrs. Li also smiled and said, "That's great, the house will be even more lively in the future." Mrs. Wen called sister-in-law Qian to go back and tidy the room, and Tao Hongying also started cooking. At this time, Shuiling and the Singh family's mother-in-law came back with the medicine. Singh Wainer felt relieved and was about to take the car home and pack some clothes and daily necessities for her mother. Mrs. Lee was even more pleased with her attentiveness and told her, "Go early and come back early. We will wait for you to have dinner together. Our mother's craftsmanship is second to none. If you miss it, you should regret it." Mrs. Wen smiled and said, "Don't be afraid, maybe Warner will be able to eat Hong Ying's cooking every day in the future." Everyone laughed tacitly, making Singh Wainer blush and leave quickly. Jiyan and Beizu were eating fruits and watching the fun, laughing and kicking their little fat legs, very happy. Before lunch, Singh Wainer rushed back as expected. Everyone had a sumptuous meal, and Mrs. Singh, mother and daughter Singh Wainer stayed at the Wen family. Mrs. Jia is not worried at all. When the sun turns to the west, she will bring the orb back to the city. Beizu was so reluctant to part with her that she could not wait to hug the doorpost of the Li family. She wanted to stay, saying that she would accompany her aunt in her treatment. Mrs. Jia was really dumbfounded when she heard this. She coaxed her, "Your aunt is here for treatment. I will definitely come to visit you. From now on, I will take you with me every time." Beizu was reluctant to go back. However, Mrs. Jia did not lie this time. As expected, she would come to Broken Gold Beach the next day. Beizu always became a follower, sticking to Li's house to play with Jiyan, occasionally practicing calligraphy together, and talking about embarrassing things about learning the rules. The Li family loves Beizu, is greedy and simple, and is very happy that Jiyan has such a little sister. As a result, the Li family almost spoiled Beizu so much that they no longer wanted to be the daughter of the Jia family. In a blink of an eye, the 12th or 13th day passed. Singh Wainer brought her maid and brought a bowl of lean meat soup from the Wen's house next door. She saw Beizu and Jiyan sitting in rows at the door of the kitchen, each holding a bowl, and their mouths were oily as they ate. She couldn't help but smile. Baozu also saw her cousin and hurriedly shouted to Bao, "Cousin, the fourth aunt's fried meatballs are so delicious. Wow, why am I not a child of the Li family? I really wish I could eat them every day." Before Wainer could respond, Tao Hongying had already poked her head out of the kitchen and said with a smile, "If your mother hears this, I'm afraid she will make you practice 100 more Chinese characters when you get home." Beizu immediately shrank his neck and quickly stuffed all the meatballs into his mouth, for fear of saying the wrong thing again. The music was so good that I ran to pick up the last meatball and give it to my future sister-in-law. Wainer was embarrassed to eat, but when she saw the fat girl's bright eyes and sweet smile, she couldn't help but open her mouth, and then she was overcome by the delicious food, and she also smiled and blushed. When Mr. Ho came back from outside, he saw a lot of old and young women as soon as he entered the courtyard, and he subconsciously stopped. Jiyan was the first to see it. He ran over and cheered loudly, "Father, you are back." The Marquis ruffled her hair and asked with a smile, "Are your clothes and jewelry ready? We will set off tomorrow morning." "Let's go." "Where are we going?" Hearing the good news, he was a little confused. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 668. Chapter 668 Jia.model.yin is online. The Marquis couldn't help but smile. Of course it's the Wanchao festival. We'll go to the palace for a banquet the day after tomorrow. Aren't you going to the pastry shop to prepare a birthday cake tomorrow and staying at the Marquis mansion tonight? Oh, I forgot. Jiyan stared in surprise. I have been having a lot of fun these past few days, and I have to catch up on my homework in the space at night, but I have completely forgotten such a big thing. Master Ho took her hand, entered the house, saluted Mrs. Lee, gave a few brief instructions and then returned to his yard. Mrs. Jia was accompanying Mrs. Lee to do needlework and gossip. Seeing this, She guessed that the Marquis was going to have dinner here at noon, so she wanted to take the orb and leave quickly. Although Bezu was mostly full after eating, he was reluctant to part with the good news. Jiyan said, "Didn't you say that Sister Wanner's brother always wants to play among the white clouds? I will stay in the shop most of the day tomorrow, why don't you bring him to play?" "Really? That's great," Bezu was easily coaxed into happiness. Dion said goodbye to her mother and hurried to her uncle's house to tell her cousin the good news. Wanner put down the soup bowl and went back to Wen's house. In this way, after the meal was ready, Shuiling went to invite the Marquis over. There is no need to avoid suspicion among your own family members. Even though brothers Li Lao Er and Li Lao Si were not at home, Mrs. Li took the main seat, Tao Hongying and Wen Wan also sat on one side, and Jiyan and Ho Ye sat on the other side, chatting and eating in a lively manner. Opened. Mrs. Li was worried that her granddaughter would be bullied when she entered the palace, so she gave many instructions to the Marquis. Mr. Ho was not bothered and responded one by one. In the end, Mrs. Li was embarrassed. "Master Marquis, don't blame me for nagging, it's really the child Fu Niu who suffered a loss in the palace last time, and the family feels very sorry for her. If the emperor hadn't treated Fu Niu so well and she had the title of princess, the family would have really not wanted her to enter the palace." The Marquis nodded and said, "Don't worry, Auntie. I will take Fu Niu to see the emperor the day after tomorrow, and then ask the emperor to send A to follow him to Shaokong Palace. In this way, even if someone has ill intentions in his heart, he will not dare to embarrass Fu Niu." "Okay, this is best," old Mrs. Li responded. "I'll ask Nanny He to follow her into the palace later. She was born in the palace and is more familiar with the rules of the palace than others." Mammy He happened to be waiting on the side and replied directly, "If the old lady doesn't say anything, the old slave has to take the initiative to ask for orders. But don't worry, old lady, the princess has learned the rules very well now. She has memorized and become familiar with the maps of each family. She must be able to handle even the smallest problems." After that, she added, "If the old lady is still not at ease, then let Shui Ling and Shui Yun follow." The old slave just took the opportunity to chat with the old sisters in the palace. Hear about the past year and a half in the palace. If there are any taboos, let the princess avoid them. "Okay, you are familiar with this matter, so I'll leave it to you to arrange it." Old Mrs. Li directly delegated the power and said, "In a moment, you can help me see what clothes Fu Niu wears and what jewelry she wears. After all, it's a palace banquet. We don't want to be high profile and eye-catching, but we can't make it too shabby to make people look down on us." "Yes, old lady grandma," he responded with a smile. With this excuse, after dinner, the Marquis returned home. The door to the Li family was closed, and the old and young ladies gathered together and started chattering. A month ago, the chief steward of the Marquis mansion asked the embroiderer in the mansion to prepare new clothes for the princess. There are 4 sets in total, hanging in the closet. Each set is carefully made by the embroiderer, and everyone is dazzled. In the end, it was the old lady who made the decision, ordering a goose yellow brocade slant-breasted jacket, paired with a fruit green pleated skirt and a pair of gold embroidered deerskin boots. It would be perfect if paired with a white fox fur cloak. Because Jiyan is still young, it is not suitable to wear too many jewelry, which would be too conspicuous. So, it is enough to wear a gold wire hair ring inlaid with red coral pearls on your head and a lucky lie of a red gold lock on your chest. Jiyan responded to everyone's request and put on all her clothes and jewelry. Even Grandma He quickly rearranged her hair. Mrs. Li, Tao Hongying, and others looked at the fat girl from head to toe, and felt relieved that nothing was missing. Jia. Model. Yin has been struggling for most of an hour, and she can finally take a break. She lay on the Kong and pretended to be dead, not even wanting to lift a finger. Tao Hongying smiled and hit her daughter on the head, scolding, "Stop being such a scumbag. You just stretched out your hand to be a scarecrow, and the rest was taken care of, so you're tired. Forget it at home, you have to look good when you go out. It's okay if you lose your face. Our Lee family comes from a humble background, and we are not afraid of people saying that our children are unruly, but you are following the Marquis this time, so you don't want to embarrass the Marquis, do you understand? The Marquis earned his reputation at the risk of his life. You can't add glory to his face, and you definitely can't discredit him. I know, mother. Ji-Yin rubbed her mother's neck, showing off her rare act of coquettishness. Oh, my mother is so sensible, no wonder she can teach such a good girl like me. Tao Hongying was so amused that she kept laughing and slapped her daughter again. Are you praising me or yourself? Everyone also laughed and chatted, while their men were busy arranging their clothes and jewelry. The cold wind is howling outside and the night is deep, but it is warm and cozy inside. Early on the next morning, the Marquis got into the carriage with the good news and went directly into the city. Li Lauer and Mr. Wen have been very busy these days and did not come back last night. So, after the carriage brought the good news to Bianjian, the Marquis went to the Yamen of the Ministry of War. Chen 11 and shopkeeper Peng have been waiting for their boss for the past 2 days, so much that their eyes have reached the city gate. Finally meeting his boss, they hurried forward to greet him and asked questions. Speaking of which, they had made small cakes before and sent them to the emperor, but the birthday cake they were preparing this time was different. 6 floors, a whole 6 floors. Chen Ziguang drew 7 or 8 versions of the design. Ji-Yin actually doesn't care about the pattern and meaning of the cake, because any version is definitely festive. She is more worried about safety issues. Uncle Huang must be very happy to see such a big cake, so he will naturally share it with the people at the banquet. It would be a bad thing if something goes wrong with the food. In fact, the best way to avoid trouble is not to send cakes or other mouth-watering things. It's a pity that Bianjian is so famous and birthday cakes have become so popular that everyone knows about it. It is simply unreasonable to celebrate the birthday of the great master, the emperor, without putting one on the table. Fortunately, she has the cheating artifact of space. The front yard of the small courtyard is just a static space. Whatever you put in it will look the same when you take it out. Ji-Yin thought for a while and then said, Master Chen, you first make 2 6-layer cakes to practice your skills. Of course, the materials are rare, but it is better to make them better. Let's see the effect first. If there is no problem, we will do the same thing when we get up tomorrow morning, and then we will send him directly to the palace. Yes, Boss Chen 11 responded quickly. Ji-Yin then told shopkeeper Peng, that's it for today, but the ingredients that will be used tomorrow morning must be strictly inspected, and there can be no mistakes, otherwise everyone will lose their heads. The masters and boys in the yard are not allowed to leave the shop tonight. They will resume walking after the cake is delivered to the palace tomorrow. Yes, boss, don't worry, I don't have to worry about it. I didn't let everyone go home yesterday. They were in the shop the whole time. Shopkeeper Peng is a royal servant, but he has heard of too many troubles caused by eating. So, ever since he knew that his shop was going to send a birthday cake to the palace, he had been very energetic. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 669. Chapter 669, The Poison Testing Tool Fox. Ji-Yin nodded and motioned for the two of them to get busy, and then she wandered around the kitchen. While everyone was busy, she replaced the eggs with those in the space, as well as the flour and vegetable oil. But milk is not available in the space, so we can only use the milk in the shop. She scooped a bowl quietly and sent it into the space. The little fox was nibbling on the fruit. He sniffed the milk and ran over to drink it happily. Ji-Yin was completely relieved. Sanjo was very picky and intelligent. If there is something wrong with the milk, it will never drink it. Sanjo didn't know that his master had made him a fox as a poison testing tool. After drinking, he licked his mouth, still feeling unfulfilled. So, it raised its head and continued to wait, thinking that the master would reward him with another bowl, but unfortunately, Jiyan gave Chen 11 a few words and went to the house to take stock. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Baozu brought her cousin Xin Ning over. Jiyan invited them to play in the backyard for a while. You cannot show them how to make cakes, but you can show them how to fry popcorn. Seeing the tiny corn kernels turning into fragrant popcorn after a burst of crackling, Baozu and Xin Ning were so excited. The two of them were still talking non-stop until they brought popcorn and a lot of snacks to the second floor. The good news was funny to those on the side. These two are indeed cousins, both talkative. Without anyone else, the two of them can hold up a scene. The tutors in the Xin family are very good. Wanner is also gentle and dignified. Xin Ning is a little more lively, but still has the proper etiquette. Seeing that it was noon, he said goodbye and said that he had made an appointment with his classmates to buy pen and ink. Baozu hesitated in his heart for a long time, and finally chose shopping and playing between delicious food and shopping. Because there is little sister Jiyan here, there will be no shortage of delicious food, but there are not many opportunities to go shopping with my cousin and meet classmates. Jiyan saw that the nanny with the orb belt was serving beside Mrs. Jia, so she didn't stop her. Just after sending them out, Chen 11's two cakes were finished. In order to prevent others from bumping into them, the two large cakes were taken to an empty room and carefully placed on the table. Jiyan walked around the table and praised Chen 11's craftsmanship. He is already spiritual, and practice makes perfect. Now the decoration is becoming more realistic and beautiful. Chen 11 blushed when he was praised, but his chest was raised high. Obviously he was very happy. Shopkeeper Peng felt a little worried and asked, "Boss, birthday cakes are all ordered in advance. What do you think of these two? I'm afraid they won't be able to sell them." Jiyan waved his hand, "I want to give it to someone. I'll wrap it up and put it here. Someone will pick it up, so you don't have to worry." Shopkeeper Peng and Chen 11 had no doubt that they had it, thinking that their boss was going to send it back to Broken Gold Beach. So, the two of them packed it by hand, using a specially customized wooden box and tied it with a ribbon, which was very clean and tidy. Jiyan took advantage of them to go out, waved the cake and put it into the space, and then closed the door. Business in the shop is good, but when you get busy you don't have to worry about it too much. After the good news brought some snacks to the home mansion, and the goods in the front hall were almost sold, shopkeeper Peng remembered two big cakes. As a result, he went to the empty room and saw that there was nothing on the table. He quickly asked Chen 11, "The boss sent someone to pick up the cake? Why is the cake gone?" "No one is coming." Chen 11 shook his head and was a little anxious. He raised his feet and was about to go to the empty room, but shopkeeper Peng grabbed his arm after he woke up. "There's no need to go. The boss must have asked someone to take it away." Shopkeeper Peng whispered, "Don't be too anxious to bake the cake tomorrow morning. Wait for a while, maybe there will be changes when it comes to baking cakes." Chen 11 knows everything. He is passable, but when it comes to human nature and sophistication, he is incompetent. At this moment, he asked, "Why, shopkeeper? What if it delays the boss's important affairs?" "Just listen to me." The more shopkeeper Peng thought about it, the more he felt that his guess was good, so he didn't explain much, just patted Chen 11 on the shoulder and went to work. Sure enough, on the second day, when the sky was dark, Shui Ling came to the shop to inform. "Shopkeeper Peng, Master Chen and the princess said yesterday's cake was good and sent it directly to the palace. There is no need to make any more." After sending Shui Ling away, Chen 11 looked at shopkeeper Peng with admiration. "Shopkeeper, you are so amazing. How did you know? Hush, shopkeeper Peng signaled him to be silent, and then said a few words in his ear. Chen 11's eyes widened after hearing this, and finally said with emotion, "My boss is so smart." "How old is she?" "This is really." Shopkeeper Peng also smiled and said, "Yes, so let's work hard. If you follow such a boss, you will definitely not make a mistake in the future." I didn't say what was going on over there in the white clouds. I just said that I woke up early in the morning, got dressed up beautifully, had a simple breakfast, got on the Marquis's carriage, and followed my adoptive father to the palace. On the longevity festival, officials of the fifth rank or above in Kyoto, as well as women with titles and imperial edicts, must go to the palace to kowtow. Of course, only a part of them can be left to eat the birthday banquet in the end. With the current power of the Xintingho mansion, they still queued at the palace gate for more than half an hour before it was the turn of the Marquis and Jiyan to enter the palace. Jiyan couldn't help but feel happy. Fortunately, Grandma took a sick leave, otherwise it would have been too tiring to wait for so long. The Marquis wanted to rub the fat girl's hair, but seeing that she was rarely dressed so formally, he patted her on the shoulder instead and said with a smile, "When you enter the palace, if you are unhappy about something, just say it. You are still a child, and no one can ask you to be considerate of everything. If you occasionally lose your temper, others will know that you are not easy to bully and they will not dare to treat you casually." "I know, don't worry." Adoptive father Jiyan patted his belt and whispered, "I brought a lot of good things. If anyone dares to bully me, I will let them know how powerful I am, the little bully of Broken Gold Beach." "Ha ha ha," Mr. Ho couldn't help laughing and pinched his daughter's fat face. "Whose little bully is so cute and cute?" After entering the palace, the father and daughter went directly to the imperial study. The emperor has just finished his breakfast and is about to get dressed. As soon as good news entered the door, he bowed and was full of happy words, which made the emperor laugh. He said to the Marquis, "Cousin, every time this girl does this, I get scared. I always feel that I can't keep all my good things." The Marquis also smiled and said, "There should be no need to lose money today, but she brought a birthday gift." "Oh, I still have birthday gifts to receive." The emperor pretended to be surprised and asked, "Tell me quickly what good things Fu Niu has brought." Jiyan replied with a smile, "Uncle Huang, you will know with your own eyes." After saying that, she waved her little hand towards Manager Yi at the door. Manager Yi quickly asked the outside the door to carry the things in. 2 large wooden boxes, plus a slightly smaller wooden box. Soon, the big wooden box was opened, revealing 2 kumquat trees inside. The kumquat tree is almost half the height of a human being, with green leaves and branches braided into the character longevity. Little golden oranges are only as big as a baby's fist and are hung all over the tree crown, like little stars, which is very festive. The emperor was happy to see it. Manager Yi also kept praising, "I remember that Uncle Zongshan's garden often had good flowers on display. A glazed greenhouse was built a few days ago, and many flower-loving adults in the court often want to go there. I wonder if these kumquats also come from Baiwan Garden? No wonder all the adults are willing to go." Even the old slave couldn't help but feel a little better after seeing the green and golden eyes. The emperor nodded, picked an orange at random, peeled it open and tasted it with his own hands. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 670. Chapter 670, The princess's teaching mother really deserves to be beaten to death. Originally, he thought that the kumquat was just for good luck and would not taste very good. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be extremely sweet, which made him even more happy. "Okay, this birthday gift is really great. Fu Niu has put great effort into it. I like it very much." Jiyan narrowed her eyes with a smile, "It's great that Uncle Huang likes it. I've been watering, fertilizing, and planting for a long time, and finally I'm not tired in vain. Uncle Huang is tired from reviewing the memorials, so he picks an orange and eats it. Now it quenches his thirst and is fresh later. When I have something good, I will bring it to Uncle Huang. After saying that, she pointed to the wooden box and said to Manager Yi, there is a 6-layer birthday cake here for our big boss. Manager Yi, let people look at it and don't let anyone touch it. Manager Yi quickly agreed with a smile and said jokingly, at the birthday banquet later, the old slave will bring this cake to the big boss and the ministers to share the cake, and also to attract more business for our shop, right? Haha, Manager Yi is so awesome. That's it. From now on, Manager Yi will no longer be in the palace, and he must be the shopkeeper of our shop. The good news was not polite at all, and he poached in front of his face, which made everyone laugh. The emperor even nodded her forehead. You are the only one in the world who dares to poach the chief manager in front of me. Oh, boss, don't be so stingy. I am also doing it for the business of our shop. Jiyan looked old-fashioned and smoothed the non-existent beard on his chin, which made the emperor laugh even more. Outside the door, the young and the maid straightened their bent backs slightly when they heard the noise in the room. Such a longevity festival, starting with the emperor's laughter, will definitely go smoothly. After talking for a while longer, the emperor called Eunuch Feng, who usually worked for Manager Yi, to give some instructions without the need for the marquis to speak. Then Jiyan followed Eunuch Feng to Shaokong Palace to pay his respects to the Queen Mother. Jiyan has been in Zindu for several years. This is the first time he has met the Queen Mother, and he is also curious. Speaking of which, the Queen Mother is also a cruel person. She is not the biological mother of the current emperor. She was not favored when the late emperor was alive, but she took advantage of the late emperor's death and the current emperor's unstable footing to seize half of the political power. For so many years, he has held firm and fought against the emperor without losing a single cent. It was precisely because of this internal strife that the country's power was gradually weakening, so the barbarians outside the Great Wall were given the opportunity to break through the border, and then force the imperial court to move south, giving up half of the country. Such serious consequences finally alerted the neutral officials in the DPRK and China, and began to side with the emperor. This is also the reason why Xintinghao was able to successfully win several battles for military power. Of course, after getting the military power, how to run the army strictly and get good news again and again is up to the Marquis Xinting himself. Especially after autumn, there was a good harvest of corn and potatoes, and Tianwu no longer suffered from famine. The barbarians were also beaten so that they did not dare to approach the Jinsha River, and the emperor's prestige was further enhanced. The Queen Mother became even more silent. Everyone speculated whether the Queen Mother would retire, give up fighting for government affairs, and give Tianwu a stable and clean court. Jiyan usually doesn't pay attention to these things, but only pieced together this information after hearing bits and pieces from family members and the Marquis. In her opinion, although the Li family is now considered a nouveau riche, they are also staunch royalists. But compared to those old aristocratic families and wealthy families, it is really nothing to mention. The Queen Mother's party, or rather the Queen Mother, would not regard the Li family as a thorn in their side or a thorn in their flesh. However, even if this day comes in the future, the Li family is not afraid. At that time, the Li family was already full-fledged. Whoever dares to be an enemy of the Li family will have his body wiped out. With such random thoughts, we arrived at Shaokong Palace. Today, there are many women who come to the palace to kowtow, but there are only a dozen or so who are qualified to go to Shaokong Palace to say hello. After the announced loudly, the good news followed Eunuch Feng in. Eunuch Feng laughed with him and said to the Queen Mother who was sitting at the top, "The Queen Mother, Princess Kangol came into the palace to congratulate the Emperor on his birthday." The Emperor sent an old slave to send the princess over to say hello to the Queen Mother. Jiyan walked in with his head half lowered, but he was already looking at everyone in the room out of the corner of his eye. To her surprise, The Queen Mother did not look domineering and solemn, but had a kind-hearted look on her face and a smile on her face. Wearing a sapphire blue liofa jacket with dark patterns and a bunch of Buddhist beads in her hand, she looked like a pampered lady from a wealthy family. Sitting next to her is the Queen, and beside the Queen is the third princess. The other women sitting on both sides were unknown to him. After hearing what Eunuch Feng said, Jiyan knelt down and kowtowed, and said crisply, Li Jiyan, Princess of Kangal, pays her regards to the Queen Mother and wishes the Queen Mother peace, happiness, and all the best. The Queen Mother smiled and said, get up. This is really the first time for the AI family to meet Princess Kangal. Come on, raise your head and let the AI family take a closer look. Not daunted by the good news, she looked up at the Queen Mother and smiled sweetly. The little girl, Yu Shui is cute, she is very festive, her eyes are curved, making it easy for people to love. As expected, the Queen Mother smiled and nodded, praising, no wonder the Emperor loves the princess like his own daughter, she is such a good child. This was fine by others, but the third princess was unhappy. She blurted out, huh, Foxy. You've charmed your father, who knows what you're thinking. The room was silent for a moment, and the few ladies who originally wanted to echo the Queen Mother hurriedly swallowed their words and almost bit their tongues. The Queen should have reprimanded the princess at this time, but she was not an all-rounded person. These days, her main focus was on having children. She just listened to the Queen Mother's words and became distracted. She thought that if she could get pregnant as soon as possible, even if she had another princess. For a time, no one came to the rescue, and the situation was very embarrassing. Jiyan really doesn't like the third princess, but her adoptive father has repeatedly warned her not to be wronged. So, she looked at the third princess with surprise and asked, what did the third princess say? Flirty. Charming. How could such dirty words come out of the princess's mouth? Did the princess's nanny teach her? The princess should really drag her down and beat her to death. Even if she can't be taught well, she shouldn't be taught to be like a market woman, speaking such filthy words. Also, if the princess doesn't like me, you can just scold me. The emperor loves me as his own daughter, but you call me flirtatious. Doesn't this mean that the emperor is stupid? Uncle Huang is your father and the head of a country. The princess is really unfilial. Okay, the Queen Mother spoke in time to interrupt Jiyan's words, and also rescued the third princess whose eyes were red with anger. The Queen Mother said with a smile, the AI family thought that the princess was good-looking, but she never thought that she had a clever mouth. It's really rare. A woman sitting on the lower left hand, who was about 40 years old and wearing an azure-embroidered treasure-faced round collar robe, also said at this moment, yes, the Queen Mother, the princess does not have any tricks mouth, how can you coax so many people to like it? Jiyan turned to look at the woman and asked with curiosity, who is this? End of this chapter.